Hello MTG friends, Zach here back with another video. Today we're going to do the promised Lord of the Rings main set legendary creatures review. Doing little quickfire reviews for each of these guys. Just been pretty busy with work, so didn't really have a chance to sit down and record this, but now I do. So please enjoy. We've had the set for a little while now, so had a little better idea and a chance to play with a few of these. So yeah, a little bit of experience, a little bit of excitement. Let's see what I think, and maybe let me know what you think down in the comments below. All right, so we're going to go just in alphabetical order. Moxfield orders Aowen and Yomir down at the bottom because of the little symbol above the E, so we'll talk about them last, and let's do it. Aragorn and Arwen Wed. This is one of the starter deck legendaries, so 4 green-white for a 3/6 human elf noble. Vigilance. When they enter or attack, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, and you gain a life for each other creature you control. Real simple. This is like the easiest go-wide deck you could imagine. You get a bunch of creatures, you put 1/1 counters on them whenever Aragorn and Arwen either enter or attack, and then you get a bunch of life off of it too. Super easy, super powerful. The 6 mana cost is certainly, challenging, but if you can ensure you've got a way to sneak them in, like getting them tempted by the ring, then you're going to buff your whole team in a really efficient way. Aragorn Company Leader is next, 1 green-white for a 3/3 human ranger. When the ring tempts you, if you chose someone other than Aragorn, put your choice of a counter from among First Strike, Vigilance, Death Touch, or Lifelink on Aragorn. When you put one or more counters on Aragorn, you get to put one of those on another target creature. Aragorn is a really great role player. I'm not sure that he's going to be your commander in a deck unless you're trying to go really hard on a green-white tempt theme and then start passing out counters. But I think if you really focus on that second ability, Aragorn can be really efficient. Basically, you're putting a bunch of 1/1 counters out and around, Aragorn will let you put an extra one somewhere. You're using keyword counters, Aragorn gets you that extra one somewhere. And I think that's really powerful, if a little undervalued when somebody's building a deck. Aragorn's pretty powerful, and I think you should check him out. Just maybe not at the head of a deck. Though there is an Aragorn that should go right at the head of the deck, and that's Aragorn the Uniter. This guy goes infinite with a hand sandwich. Frankly, he's a 5/5 for red, green, white, blue. He's a human noble. You cast a white spell, you make a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Cast a blue spell, you scry 2. Red spell deals 3 damage to target opponent, or green spell gives a creature +4/+4 until end of turn. The most simple, the most easy infinite here is Food Chain plus Squee the Immortal. You make infinite mana, you cast infinite squeeze, you burn out the infinite table. Super easy, super efficient, but that scry effect is pretty powerful. Making a bunch of 1/1s is really easy and powerful, and then that green effect is insane with some Temur Sabertooth Dockside loops here. Dockside's going to kill the table that way, but Temur Sabertooth on its own is a really powerful loop combo. You've got some Deadeye Navigator loop combos here. Just any loop combo that lets you cast spells especially is gonna kill the table really easily. Even if it's not with the direct damage through red, you can just make a creature almost infinitely large and just kill the table that way. Aragorn is terrifying, and I think if you're building a 4-color deck, he should be your first consideration. We have Arwen Undomiel next. She is green and blue for a 2/2 elf noble. When you scry, put a 1/1 counter on a creature. For 4 green, blue, you can scry 2. Similar to what I was saying about Aragorn Company Leader, I don't think this is the head of your deck, but I think in a Scry Matters deck, like what I'm working on currently, actually, Arwen is going to be a really nice role filler there. You scry, you get to pump something a little bit permanently. Real nice. Solid little piece, and it's only 2 mana. Then we have Arwen Mortal Queen. This is her full version. She is 1 green and a white for an elf noble. She's a 2/2, and she enters with an indestructible counter on her. For 1 mana, you can pull an indestructible counter off of Arwen. Another creature gains indestructible till end of turn, and then you put a 1/1 counter and a lifelink counter on both that creature and Arwen. If you have a way to proliferate indestructible counters, Arwen is a menace. Very dangerous. The fact that she on her own just has inherent built-in protection at the start by having that indestructible counter built in is crazy. And then if you have a nice easy way to just keep proliferating, you can make sure that she keeps her indestructible counters and then just passes out counters and lifelinks like crazy. She seems really, really powerful, pretty efficient. Similar situation to Aragorn, where I'm not really sure that she's the build-around for your whole deck, but I think she goes really well in certain counter decks, especially ones that are already looking to proliferate the counters that they have laying around. We have Bilbo, Retired Burglar next. 1 blue, red for a Halfling Rogue. He's a 1/3. When he enters or leaves, the ring tempts you. When Bilbo deals combat damage to a player, get yourself a treasure. Really efficient little dude. 3 mana 1/3 isn't great, but like he's really good at tempting a whole lot. So if you're looking for that, especially in these two colors, Bilbo's going to be a nice include. Plays really well with flicker effects as a way to kind of up your tempt counter, keep repeatable tempting happening onto the things that you need tempting to be on, whoever you want to be your ring bearer. But I don't think he's all that crazy. Definitely not your commander. All right, we have Bill Ferny, Bree Swindler, 1 blue for a 2/1 human rogue. When he gets blocked, you can either make a treasure or give an opponent a horse you control, remove Bill from combat, and make 3 treasures. Don't build this. It is so many hoops to leap through for no payoff. 3 treasures is not worth the payoff, especially if you're giving an opponent a horse. I wouldn't do it, because that horse is going to be Bill, the pony. Yeah, it's Bill. 3 and a white for a 1/4 horse. When he enters, you make 2 food. You can sack a food to make things hit with their butts. Pretty cool. Only works on your creatures, so you can't like blank a combat on an opponent here by turning their 8/1 into a 1/1. Not that they're swinging with 8/1s, but you get what I'm saying. Either way, also not really a commander, but nice in booty decks when you need him. Yeah, he's fine. He makes 2 food on entry, which I think for a 1/4 coming with 2 food is certainly not bad. Kind of playable, but not your commander. Boromir, Warden of the Tower, also not your commander, but incredible card here. 2 and a white, 3/3 human soldier with vigilance. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter it, and then you can sack Boromir to give your creatures indestructible until end of turn, have the ring tempt you. Again, incredible in the 99, awesome role filler, blanking your opponent's free spells, but with an off switch if you really want to let an opponent cast their free spell is crazy. Also just provides team support, and getting a ring tempt is a great way to start sneaking a smaller attacker in. I think Boromir is really excellent in the 99 of any white deck that is going wide enough that you need some board protection. We have Butterberry Innkeeper, 2 green-white, 3/3 human peasant. My man's got muscles. Look at those arms carrying all those beers and pancakes. But he's real simple. At your end step, if you don't have a food, make a food. This is the type of card that I would play in like a Ginny Fey deck if I was a little slower than I think what my personal Ginny Fey deck is playing at. This is just basically at the beginning of your end step, make a cat or make a dog. Simple as that. Again, not really a card that I think is going to be your commander, but I think he has a role to play in food decks and a couple token decks as well. We have Celeborn the Wise, 3 green for a 3/3 elf noble. When you attack with one or more elves, scry 1. When you scry, he gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each card you looked at while scrying. Yeah, again, simple role filler. I think this is good in an elf deck. I don't think this is your commander. But just being able to get a scry 1 when you swing with elves, and then, pumping himself if you're doing a lot of scrying. Both are decent effects. But again, not one that you're going to have at the helm of a deck. Denethor, Ruling Steward, 1 white, black for a 2/4 human noble. Beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, make a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. For 2, you can sack another creature, and then each opponent loses a life, and you gain a life. This card is about this close to being playable as a commander, and that's at the beginning of your end step line. If it just said at the beginning of each end step, I think Denethor would actually have an incredible place in Aristocrats decks. I also think that might be too strong. But just the fact that you have to wait for your own turn just to get that 1/1/1 is slow enough that I don't think this card is particularly playable. All right, we have Eleanor Gardner next. She is 3 and a green for a halfling scout, 2/4. When she enters, make a food. In the beginning of your end step, if you sacked a food this turn, search your library for a basic, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. Whew! Really excellent card, and it's going up in price because it's one of the Jumpstart pack exclusives. I think this card is honestly a little nuts. Really great in food decks. It's basically, beginning of your end step only, so similar to Denethor, it's on an every turn kind of deal, but it's really easy to just sack 1 food during your turn, and turning a food from a 2-mana tap crack gain 3 to 2-mana tap crack gain 3 and then go get a tapped basic. That's really good. Play this in your food decks. Not really anywhere else, though. Elrond, Lord of Rivendell, is 2 and a blue for an Elf Noble. He's a 3/2. When he or another creature enters under your control, scry 1. This is the second time this ability has resolved this turn. The ring tempts you. Absolutely phenomenal repeatable tempting here. The fact that you're just getting easy access to a scry just from a creature entering. And this happens every time. Every single time a creature enters, scry 1. If it happens twice, you get a free tempt. But like the scry, I think, is really efficient here. This lets you really start digging for whatever you need. If you're playing like a bouncy house deck, like I'm planning to put this guy into, I'm putting him into my Lannis deck. You are just scrying until you find the exact piece that you want, and Elrond is really good at that. Once again, don't play this as your commander probably, but really excellent role player in the 99. Next up, we're going to be talking about Elrond, Master of Healing. This is one of those cards that I think is actually pretty viable as a commander here. 2 green-blue for a 4/4 Elf Noble. When you scry, put a 1/1 counter on each of up to X target creatures, where X is the number of cards looked at while scrying this way. And whenever a creature with a counter on it that you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you get to draw a card, if you want to. Elrond seems absolutely phenomenal at the top of a deck. Good 2-color, good rate. You get a 4/4 for 4 right off the bat. And then really just whenever you scry, you get to pump up a bunch of creatures permanently. Even a scry 1 is a free 1/1 counter, and it can get even bigger than that. What's also really nice about this is it doesn't specify your creatures on Elrond's +1/+1 counter ability. So things like Generous Patron, let's say you like scryed 4, but you only control 3 creatures, you can stick a 1/1 counter on one of your opponent's creatures and get yourself a free card draw that way. Additionally, Elrond has some built-in protection for some of your creatures as well. So, sure, an opponent will probably not think twice about removing your most powerful stuff, but the fact that you have the ability to draw a card when your opponent targets your stuff, even if you can find a way to protect that, is really powerful. And you get the card before their spell resolves, so you could draw into a counterspell. All right, next up we have Erkenbrand, Lord of Westfold. 3 and a red for a 3/3 human soldier. When he or another human enters under your control, creatures you control get +1/+0 till end of turn. Just this is a combo kill kind of piece here. Again, one of those cards that I don't really think has a place at the helm of a deck if you're really wanting to win through like a whole bunch of humans entering. But I think in a deck that cares about humans, like one of the printed commander decks that Wizards made for this set, Erkenbrand is a really powerful piece that can just pump your team up massively really quickly. All right, we have Fangorn Tree Shepherd next. 4 green, 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 so 7 mana in total for a 4/10 Tree Folk. Your Tree Folks have Vigilance. When one or more Tree Folk you control attack, add twice that much green, and you don't lose unspent green mana as steps and phases end. So Fangorn, he's an interesting card. He definitely is begging you to play a lot of Tree Folk, because if 1 Tree Folk attacks, you get 2 green. If 8 Tree Folks attack, you get 16 green, and you keep that mana as long as you need it. So there's definitely some powerful effects here, but you just definitely need access to a lot of Tree Folk, or, a way to get yourself to 7 green pretty quickly, or 7 mana pretty quickly. The Vigilance effect on that, though, is really nice, because Fangorn himself is, again, a massive 4/10, incredible blocker, but also just really easy to survive on an attack with. So I think Fangorn is just a really interesting piece that might just be a little more costly than what you might want, but I still think he's pretty cool. Playable at the head of a mono green deck, I think, but I think he's going to play a lot better in a deck with multiple colors that can take advantage of his effects. Faramir, Field Commander next. 3 and a white for a human soldier. It's a 3/3. Beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, you get to draw a card. And whenever the ring tempts you, if you choose someone other than Faramir, you make a 1/1 white human soldier creature. Token. Not a commander. Pretty good in the 99 of an Aristocrats deck, though. Just being able to get a free card draw on your end step if something died. That's certainly a good effect for some kind of sacrifice decks. Faramir's decent tool. 3/3 for 4 isn't bad, especially with that card draw baked in as well. But the tempting effect is probably not going to come up very often, since Faramir himself does not have any tempting baked into him. We have another version of Faramir next. Faramir, Prince of Ithilien. 2 white-blue for a 3/3 human noble. At the beginning of your end step, choose an opponent. At the beginning of that player's next end step, you draw a card if they didn't attack you this turn. Otherwise, make 3 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. Faramir is a really interesting effect. I think he struggles at 4 mana, and I would have really liked to see him at 3, like 1 white blue, maybe as a 2/2. But the fact that he is kind of like a bet. You basically go, hey, end of my turn, I don't think you're going to beat me up. I don't think you're going to hit me. Or you can use it politically, like, hey, buddy, don't hit me, this happens, blah, blah, blah. But you either draw a card, which is a pretty good effect, if they didn't swing at you on their turn. And then if they did, you get 3 blockers. So honestly, like a solid little piece. Works really well if you can double his trigger and pick 2 opponents as well. This is a card that I'm thinking about testing out in my Pramicon Sky Rampart Pillow Fort deck, because I can guarantee myself one of the 2 effects, essentially. Pretty cool card. Again, not a card that I think is going to make a huge impact as a commander, but I think he has a lot of opportunity here by building like an Azorius Pillow Forts deck. Really interesting card. We have Frodo Baggins next. This is white-green for a 1/3 Halfling Scout. When he or another legendary enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. As long as Frodo is your ring bearer, it must be blocked if able. This card's a little funky here because, for one, it's an uncommon, but I like that it has the baked-in temptation or another legendary creature. Sure, yeah, get yourself a free tempt. What's weird, though, is if Frodo's your ring bearer, he has to be blocked if able, but the first of the ring's abilities is that your ring bearer is legendary and can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. So basically, Frodo is saying, I swing, and if you're little, you have to block me, and I'm probably going to kill you. But I really like the first ability on here. For 2 mana, that's pretty efficient. And as long as you're playing enough legendary creatures, you're going to guarantee that you're getting a lot of ring tempts happening, which can be pretty impactful on the right card. Alright, we have Frodo Determined Hero next. This is another one of those cards out of the starter decks. 1 and a white for a 2/2 Halfling Warrior. When he enters the battlefield or attacks, you may attach target equipment you control with mana value 2 or 3 to Frodo. And as long as it's your turn, you prevent all damage that would be dealt to him. So Frodo is super spicy because he's a really excellent Sword of X and Y commander. I am so amused, though, that they specifically wrote the text to get around Colossal Hammer. That's really funny. But I think this card is really great as, like, maybe a piece in an equipment deck, but I could almost see, like, a mono white deck built around this. He's really easy to get out. He's just 2 mana. And then you can start dropping your 2 and 3 mana equipments onto the board, and then just getting free equips onto Frodo to make him an absolute Voltron menace. Seems pretty fun, actually, and the fact that he avoids all damage means you can pick some powerful effects that maybe don't boost up his power and toughness. You just have to make sure you have 2 and 3 drop equipments. Alright, we have Frodo Sauron's Bane next. A single white mana for a 1/2 Halfling Citizen, but for a 2 different hybrid white-blacks. If he's a citizen, he becomes a Halfling Scout, and his power and toughness become 2/3, and he gains a lifelink. And then for 3 black, if he's a Scout, he becomes a Halfling Rogue. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, the player loses the game if the ring has tempted you 4 or more times this game. Otherwise, the ring tempts you. Pretty cool card, honestly. Easy 1-drop, and then every turn you can just level them up as long as you've, got the right mana here. So you need, 3 white-black dual lands of some sort here in order to pull off the 3 black, or at least a white, or a dual land source and then 2 black sources. But honestly, seems pretty powerful. If you can get Temptation going, Frodo can knock some people out really quickly, especially if he is your ring bearer, because he's going to be really hard to block. He's just a 2/3. Really sneaky effect here. I liked Frodo Sauron's Bane a lot. I think this is absolutely one you could build as a commander. I also think this has a place in a Temptation deck, even if he's not at the helm. Alright, we have Galadriel of Lothlorien next. 1 green-blue for a 3/3 elf noble. Whenever the ring tempts you, if you chose a creature other than Galadriel as your ring bearer, scry 3. Whenever you scry, you may reveal the top card of your library. If a land is revealed this way, put it onto the battlefield, tapped. This is actually a card I am building a commander of out of this set. I do really like the Elrond that we spoke about earlier, Master of Healing, but I think this one's even a little more fun. The fact that you can manipulate your top deck and then essentially drop lands onto the board over and over again. It doesn't care if it's a basic, it's just if it's a land. So it seems like a really interesting lands and scry themed deck. And if you happen to include a few effects that do Temptation, like I think it's Rangers of Lothlorien or something like that. I can't quite... Dunedain Rangers. I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head, but goes really well with Galadriel because you need to be picking non-Galadriel creatures as your ring bearers, so you can just pick fodder and swing in with them. And you're going to have a way to, scry 3, so you're pretty highly likely to hit a land at that point. Galadriel seems really fun to build around, and I'm really enjoying the process of building this deck so far. Next we have Galadriel Gift Giver, another card out of the starter decks. 5 mana, so 3 green for a 4/4 Elf Noble. When she enters her attacks, you can either put a 1/1 counter on another target creature, make a food token, or make a treasure token. I wouldn't even play this in the 99, to be honest. This is probably the second weakest of all of the starter deck commander cards. Really just kind of a disappointing effect. 5 mana for this does not seem very impactful. The fact that she has to be attacking but has absolutely no built-in invasion, really just kind of rough here. You're only putting a single 1/1 counter on things. You're only making a single food, or you're only getting a single treasure. The payoff does not seem worth the investment here. Pretty down on this card. We have Gandalf the Grey next. 3 blue and red for a 3/4 Avatar Wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, choose one that hasn't been chosen. There's 4 of these, so you have to kind of pick 4 of them in this order here. You can tap it on tap a target permanent. He deals 3 damage to each opponent. You can copy an instant or sorcery you control and choose new targets for it, or put Gandalf on top of its owner's library. So basically, Gandalf has 3 tricks that help you out, and then he fucks off. But Gandalf is actually pretty interesting. So if you have ways to do things like, just cycle through a bunch of cards in your deck and cast a bunch of spells, so a Storm deck, or if you are running an Isochron Scepter Dramatic Reversal combo, you can just keep getting a bunch of these effects over and over again by just generating a lot of mana. You just have to have a way to get Gandalf back off the top of your deck. So as long as you have a way to draw a card, Gandalf is going to do a lot of work for you. It's an interesting effect, but I think he's expensive at 5 mana. The fact that you then have to draw him and recast him to start doing these again is a little rough, but, certainly better than paying the commander tax every time. Interesting card. I would like to see what people do with this, but I'm not super jazzed about it myself. We do have Gandalf the White next. He is 3 white for a 4/5 Avatar Wizard. He has Flash, and he gives your legendary spells and artifacts Flash as well. If a legendary permanent or an artifact entering or leaving the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, it triggers twice. So the thing that is triggering does not have to be legendary or an artifact, but what's causing it to trigger has to be a legendary and artifact. But this card is crazy. 5 mana, Flash in a 4/5, gives a bunch of your other stuff Flash as well. I have a lot of memories of having a Wrath Capation Ship's Mage deck. He's the one that gives your historic permanents Flash, and he himself has Flash and Flying. But then the doubling effect is just really powerful. We already saw how good new Elish Norn was. All Will Be One Elish Norn was with the doubling and shutting off. Having that Torpor Orb effect certainly made that Elish Norn really impactful. Gandalf doesn't have that, but I think gaining all of this flash benefits and letting you play at instant speed is really significant and makes him a really powerful player. Alright, we have Gandalf Friend of the Shire next, the card with the most alternate art treatments in this whole set. Wizards. Why? Anyway, Gandalf Friend of the Shire, 3 and a blue for a 2/4 Avatar Wizard with Flash. You can cast your sorcery spells as if they had Flash. If the ring tempts you, if you chose someone other than Gandalf, draw a card. Frankly, this isn't a bad card. It's not a great card. I'm not going to play this as my commander, but having a nice way to, at instant speed, drop in a 2/4 and then start giving your your sorceries Flash really isn't bad. And then if you've got a lot of tempting effects, getting to draw that card is really nice. I like Gandalf well enough. It definitely has a place in the 99 of some Spellslinger decks, especially decks that really like their sorceries. So I think Gandalf's kind of cool. Alright, and then we have Gandalf White Rider. This is another one of those starter deck cards. He is 4 mana, 3 and a white for a 3/3 Avatar Wizard with Vigilance. When you cast a spell, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn, and you scry 1. When he dies, you can put him into his owner's library 5th from the top. Very flavorful, very fun. I honestly think this card is great. This is, again, not a card you're probably going to have at the helm of your deck, but I think this one's certainly reasonable for the helm of a deck. Mono white can absolutely poop out a lot of creatures, and then just every time you cast a spell, pump your whole team. That seems pretty good, pretty valuable. Gandalf, great include. Cool card. All right, we have Gimli, Counter of Kills, 3 and a red for a 4/3 Dwarf Warrior with Trample. When a creature an opponent controls dies, Gimli deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. This is just screw you, Aristocrats decks. I love the art on this where he's just bashing the shit out of an orc right there. Absolutely beautiful. Really, like, a solid, efficient little card. I am trying this out in my Torbrand Burn deck, and I think that is a great place for it here. Dealing a lightning bolt to somebody's face every time one of their creatures dies is really nasty. And I think this could totally see play in a lot of those damage amping kind of effects. All right, we have Gimli Mournful Avenger next. 1 red-green for a 3/2 Dwarf Warrior. He is indestructible as long as 2 or more creatures died this turn under your control. When another creature you control dies, you put a 1/1 counter on him. And then if it happens for the 3rd time this turn, Gimli fights something. It's a weird card. It's a really weird card. I've seen it a number of times. I even played with it in draft. It's just a weird card. Honestly, like, Gruul Aristocrats is not really something I think of when I think of Gruul, and I like that he's opening that option up. He gets absolutely huge so fast, too, if you have the ability to, pump him up and sack those creatures. I think this would be an interesting build-around kind of commander, and that fight payoff certainly isn't bad, especially since by the time the 3rd one has gone off, he's indestructible. So he is just going to bash in, and he doesn't care what the power is of what he's hitting. Gimli seems really dangerous, and if you can find a way to give him some evasion, he's just going to kill people. So easily, just going to kill people. Alright, we have Glorfindel, Dauntless Rescuer, 2 and a green for a 3/2 Elf Noble. When you scry, choose one, and Glorfindel gets +1/+1 until end of turn. He either has to be blocked, or he can't be blocked by more than 1 creature each combat. This is a piece in an Elf deck or a Scry deck. Don't play this as your commander. Don't have a lot to say about this, though. It's just, when you scry, you get a few small effects. Certainly not bad. And we have Gloin Dwarf Emissary, 2 and a red for a 3/3 Dwarf Advisor. Whenever you cast a historic spell, make a treasure token once each turn. And tap, sack a creature, goad target creature. I think Gloin is awesome. It's a shame that you only get 1 treasure each turn, but sure, that's fine. But I love that Gloin can just goad something at instant speed, and all you have to do is sack a treasure. So just for a single mana and tapping Gloin, it's a powerful effect, honestly. I like that goad is making its way into the main set as well. This is a main set card. Look at that number. What is it? 132. Right in the main set. Gets to goad something. You can force your opponent into really inopportune attacks. Really cool card. I like Gloin a whole lot. I think this could definitely see play as a commander, but I also just think this is really great in the 99 of like a Mardu Aristocrats deck, or something like Prosper where you're making a lot of treasures. Gloin is a way to just mess up your opponent's turn. All right, we have Goldberry River Daughter next. 1 and a blue for a 1/3 Nymph. You can tap to move a creature of each kind not already on Goldberry from another target permanent you control onto Goldberry. And then blue and tap, move 1 or more counters from Goldberry onto another target permanent you control, and if you do, draw a card. Whew, this card is sick. The art is beautiful. Just really awesome. I'm trying this out in my Tekuthal Super Friends deck. It is a mono blue deck that plays a lot of Planeswalkers, but also just has the benefit of Tekuthal having indestructible counters accessible to him. So the ability to hand out indestructible counters through Goldberry seems really, really good. Also, just having some card draw on there, it's a really nice way to just kind of manipulate what's happening on the board, and she herself could definitely see play as a mono blue commander that's messing around with counters, I think. Really, really cool card. I really like Goldberry a lot. I think she's a really excellent role player in a lot of decks. We have Golem, Patient Plotter, 1 and a black for a 3/1 Halfling Horror. When he leaves the battlefield, the ring tempts you, and then for a single black and sacking a creature, Golem can be returned from your graveyard to your hand at sorcery speed. I love that this is a sacrifice outlet from the graveyard. Yes, it's only 1 time because it's sorcery speed, so you can't stack a bunch of these up. Ooh, pardon me. But if you have like an easy way to discard them, like any number of discard a card, do things, your wild mongrels and all of that sort, I think that's the card I'm thinking of. Noose Constrictor, stuff like that. Anything that lets you just pitch cards. This is 1 black, sack a creature, get a card back for your fuel. I really like Golem for that effect exclusively. Just a really interesting, cool effect. And, like, sure, you get some ring temps if you've actually cast him, but I think he's a lot more interesting as a sacrifice outlet with a discard outlet as well. Pretty cool. Pretty interesting. I could see this seeing play in, like, Tiny Bones or something. Yeah, cool card. Golem Scheming Guide. This is yet another of the starter deck commanders. 1 and a black for a 2/1 halfling horror. When he attacks, look at the top 2 cards of your library and put them back in any order. You then choose land or non-land. An opponent guesses whether the top card of your library is that kind, and reveal it. If they guessed right, Golem goes out of combat. Otherwise, you draw a card and Golem can't be blocked this turn. So basically, Golem is not dying in combat, pretty much no matter what. He's either no longer in combat or he can't be blocked and you get a free card out of it. I think this card is hilarious. Is it good enough to be a commander? Probably not. Is it good enough in the 99ism decks? Maybe. It's inconsistent card draw, which I think is the biggest issue with the card. But it's certainly a way to filter some cards if you are able to really mess with your opponent's head. And I honestly love little minigame effects like this. Golem's a cool card. Gorbag of Minas Morgul, 1 and a black for a 2/2 orc soldier. When a goblin or orc you control deals combat damage to a player, you can sack it, and if you do, either draw a card or make a treasure. Nice role player in like a Rakdos Goblins deck, good with a mass orcs. Not really a lot to talk about, though. Just easy sacrifice effects, easy aristocrat stuff. Gorbag's pretty cool. And we have Gothmog Morgul Lieutenant, 3 and a black for a 3/3 human soldier. When he enters, amass orcs 1, and your tokens have Death Touch. Really similar to a lot of the amass effects we got out of War of the Spark, but we're doing it with orcs this time. Cool card. If you're building a really heavy tokens deck and you want a good way to get Death Touch, Gothmaw is not a bad effect here. And if you're building an amass deck, specifically Gothmog is a must-include. I think this card's pretty cool, but he's not going to be your commander. We have Grishnak Brash Instigator, he's not playing like a trumpet here. 2 and a red for a 1/1 Goblin Soldier. When he enters, amass orcs 2. When you do, gain control of target non-legendary creature an opponent controls, power less than or equal to the amassed army's power, untap it, and it gains haste. So this is just kind of a weird control effect, just for a turn. But he comes in, he gets you a second body, either making you a 2/2 if you don't already have an army, or making one bigger and then stealing something a little bigger. There's no built-in sacrifice or anything, though, so this is absolutely not a commander. But again, if you're playing in a mass deck, I think Grishnak has a place in it. We have Grima Wormtongue next, 2 and a black for a 1/4 human advisor. Your opponents can't gain life, and then you can tap and sack another creature. Target player loses a life, and if you sacked a legendary creature, amass orcs 2. Grima's pretty cool. I think that your opponents can't gain life rider is probably the best part about this card. The sacrifice outlet is nice, but it's not each opponent loses a life, so you're a little more targeted. It's really slow. But I like that if you are sacrificing your ring bearer or legendary creature, but it's probably going to be your ring bearer since it becomes legendary, you get that free 2/2 out of it. Grima's not a bad card. Again, probably not your commander, but certainly a nice include in the decks that wants these effects. We have Goihir the Windlord, 4 white blue for a 4/4 bird noble. Costs 2 less as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn. Has flying and vigilance and gives your birds vigilance. If you're not playing bird tribal, ignore Goihir. That's it. That's really all I got. Yorith of the Healing House, 2 and a blue for a 1/4 human cleric. You can either tap her to untap another target permanent, or untap 2 other legendary creatures. Yorith is honestly really powerful. I like the fact that they specifically said untap 2 other target legendary creatures here, because her first ability can already hit things like a Gaia's Cradle, and it'd be really rude if you could hit Gaia's Cradle and something else. But Yorith is a really great untap effect for your legendary creatures. This goes really well in like a Zevlor deck. I like it there in Zevlor. I could definitely see it in some other good tap and do things decks. Maybe Nostro could be a good place for this too. Yorith seems really nice. If your commander taps to do something, I think you should consider Yorith, especially if you've got a few other legends laying around. King of the Oathbreakers is 2 white-black for a 3/3 Spirit Noble with flying. When he or another spirit you control becomes the target of a spell, it phases out. Whenever it or another spirit you control phases in, Make a tapped 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. King of the Oathbreakers is nuts. This is like the Voltron deck from hell for your opponents here. He is practically immune. I mean, not even practically. He's basically immune to spell-based removal. He can die in combat, but he's a flyer. He can die to effects, but he's a 3/3. Like, he's decently sized. And he protects all of your spirits this way. So this is absolutely a spirit typal deck. King of the Oathbreakers is crazy. I think this card seems really fun, really dangerous, really hard for your opponents to handle. You just have to make sure you're not casting like instants and sorceries targeting it unless you actually wanted to be doing so. I think this is great as a commander. I think this is also great in the body of like an Esper Commander's deck, so you can go with, or Esper Spirits deck, so you can go with your white and blue spirits as well. Get a lot of those effects, but card is gasoline. I think King of the Oathbreakers is awesome. Definitely recommend checking this one out as a commander. We have Landreval, Landreval, Horizon Witness. I said it right the first time. White, 1 white and 4 generic for a 3/4 bird noble with flying. And 2 or more creatures you control attack a player. Another attacking creature without flying gains flying. Probably the weakest version of this effect we've gotten, but I mean, it's a 5-mana 3/4 with flying. It's great for draft. It's great for limited. I don't see this being great for commander. I wouldn't pay attention to this. We have a Legolas counter of kills to go along with Gimli from earlier. 2 green-blue for a 2/3 elf archer with reach. If you scry and Legolas is tapped, you can untap it once each turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you put a 1/1 counter on Legolas. So similar to Gimli, it has that dies trigger here. This is definitely trying to kill your opponent's creatures, so Legolas gets really, really big. He has reach, which is great, and the fact that if you scry, you can untap him is certainly nice flavor. I could see this being kind of like a lower power, fun Scry Matters commander deck, but I don't think this is like especially crazy. The Legolas that is pretty great, though, is Legolas Master Archer. For 1 green, you get a 1/4 elf archer with reach. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Legolas, put a 1/1 counter on him. Whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you don't control, Legolas shoots that creature in the face. It's amazing. He deals damage equal to his power to up to 1 target creature. Build your deck around Legolas. This is a mono green deck, 100%. You build like all the targeting effects in, not just for your stuff, but for your opponent's stuff too. So you're going to be growing your Legolas as fast as possible, and then using Legolas to just pew, 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 shoot them down. Really great. Absolutely wipes the board of stuff. We have Lobelia Sackville-Baggins next. 2 and a black for a 2/3 halfling citizen with flash and menace. When she enters, you exile a creature card from an opponent's graveyard that went there this turn, and then make that many treasure tokens where X treasure tokens where X is the exiled card's power. Not a commander. Incredible in the 99 of some decks, though, because if something big dies, you just flash Lobelia in and get yourself a massive handful of silver spoons, aka treasures. Great card. Seems really efficient. Seems pretty powerful. We have Lotho Corrupt Sheriff next. White-black for a 2/1 halfling rogue. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, you lose a life. You create a treasure token. This card is nuts. It's probably not your commander, to be clear, but this card is still nuts. 2 mana 2/1 is already a pretty solid rate on a legendary creature here. But the fact that it's whenever any player casts their second spell, you included, each turn, you just lose a life, make a treasure. Get that ramp. This card is nuts in CEDH, absolutely. If it's not already nuts in CEDH, it will be. This is monologue tax, but better in almost every single way. The only way that monologue tax is better is that it doesn't lose you a life. But this cares about your own spells too, so you can control when to trigger it instead of just waiting for your opponents. This can happen on any player's turn as long as that player just happens to cast 2 spells. Lotho is incredible, and you're going to get so much value out of this card. Wow. We have Maher Uruk-hai Captain, black and a red for a 2/2 orc soldier with menace. Whenever you would put a 1/1 counter on an army, goblin, or orc you control, put that many +1/+1 counters on it, +1 instead. I think this card is like the backbone of an amass deck. Absolutely. Or a goblins deck, like anything that's doing a lot of 1/1 counters, but realistically, it's going to be your armies, and I think Maher is really powerful there, even if he doesn't have the ability to amass built into the card. This is a must-include, could even be at the helm of it, honestly. He's so quick and easy to get down. I like Maher a lot. He's really easy to overwhelm with. We have Melanor Swift Savior next, 3 and a blue for a 3/3 bird soldier with flying. When he deals combat damage to a player, exile up to one target creature you own, and then return it to the battlefield under your control. Basically, if he hits somebody, he's like a mini, oh my gosh, what is that card's name? I used to play this in so many decks. The white-blue guy that when he hits you get to flicker a whole bunch of stuff. I can literally picture him in my head, but I can't remember his name right now. I'm sure somebody will figure it out really quickly, but this is like a mini version of that. So you're not going to build this as your commander, but if you're looking for some semblance of flicker effects, Melanor is certainly not a bad one. All right, we have Meriadoc Brandybuck next, 1 and a green for a halfling citizen. Whenever one or more halflings you control attack, make a food, and he's a 2/2. Cool card. Halfling type for sure. Probably not the commander because halflings are not just in green. But it's a nice way to get a lot of food. Really great for the Abzan food commander deck, I think, because there's a lot of halflings in there, especially pretty evasive ones that do a lot of ring nonsense, like Frodo. So Meriadoc seems like a great fit for that kind of deck. We have Merry, Esquire of Rohan next, red and white for a 2/2 halfling knight. He has haste, and he has first strike as long as he's equipped. If you attack with Merry and another legendary creature, you draw a card. Really simple, pretty strong. A good equipment kind of deck, but he's definitely telling you that he needs his buddy. So you're not swinging with Merry alone. You're not doing exalted shenanigans, but you are trying to draw those cards, and you definitely want to be equipping him because first strike is such a huge bonus, especially on a creature that will be getting probably more power, even more toughness, but mostly more power from his equipments. We have Old Man Willow next, 2 green and black for a Star Treefolk. He has power and toughness equal to the number of lands that you control. When he attacks, you can sack another creature or a token. If you do, target creature an opponent controls gets -2 until end of turn. This is a role filler for limited. I certainly don't hate the -2/-2, but I don't think it's impactful enough in general commander to really be worthwhile. We're going to move on to Peregrine Took. 2 and a green for a 2/3 halfling citizen. If you'd make 1 or more tokens, make all of those and then also make a food. Then you can sack 3 foods to draw a card. I like Peregrine a lot. I'm trying this out in Ginny Faye because she's already making a bunch of tokens as is. So the fact that I am going to be getting a free bonus food is certainly nice. And then turning those foods into either life or cards doesn't hurt. Peregrine's pretty awesome. Pippin, Guard of the Citadel, white-blue for a 2/2 halfling soldier. He has Vigilance and Ward 1, and you can tap him to give another target creature you control protection from the card type of your choice until end of turn. I think this is a really interesting fork on effects like Mother of Runes and Giver of Runes, where instead of choosing a color, you choose a card type. If your opponents are throwing a bunch of instants and sorceries around, great. You give protection from instants at the moment. If you really care about like getting your creature through other creatures, you can absolutely just give protection from creatures. Pippin seems like a really powerful include, and sure, he's a whole mana more than Mom and Giver. But I don't know, I think this card's great. Pippin's really cool, and he himself having that Ward 1 makes him just even more annoying to get rid of. We have Prince Imrahil the Fair, white and a blue for a 2/2 human noble. And you draw your second card each turn, make a 1/1. This is draw 2, that's it. If you're drawing 2 cards, you get tokens for it. Great. I could see this being kind of like a small effect at the head of a draw 2 deck in Azorius. Not incredible, not super impactful, but solid role filler effect that if you're in a bigger deck that's about caring about drawing 2 that's in these colors, Imrahil's a shoo-in. We have Quick Beam, Upstart Ent, 4 green for a 5/6 Treefolk. When he enters or another Treefolk enters, up to 2 target creatures get +2/+2 and trample until end of turn. Going along with the previous Treefolk, I think he's solid there, but I don't think you're building a commander deck around this type of effect. But I do like that it's pumping 2 things and giving them trample. That's certainly an easy way to just hit somebody for some crazy damage. We have Radagast the Brown next, 2 green for a 2/5 Avatar Wizard. When he or another non-token creature enters under your control, you look at the top X cards of your library, where X is that creature's mana value. You can reveal a creature card that doesn't share a creature type with a creature you control from among them. Put it in your hand, and the rest go on the bottom. Cool effect, honestly. Goes really well with like Volo, Guide to Monsters, that kind of deck, where you're playing just typle, all the different kinds of types that you can stick into a deck. Yeah, just cool effect here. You don't want a lot of overlapping creatures types. I love the art where Radagast just has all of his buddies with him. So I think this is certainly a nice little value piece there, either at the helm of a deck or in the 99 of more colored version of this deck. Rosie Cotton of South Lane is next, 2 and a white for a 1/1 halfling peasant. When she enters, make a food, and whenever you create a food, put a 1/1 counter on another creature that isn't Rosie that you control. This card is an infinite combo with Scurry Oak. I'm sure there's a few other crazy effects like that too. But if you are in green-white and you are looking for a way to make infinite creatures, Rosie Cotton is your gal. Also just a nice, efficient little effect here. I mean, 3 mana. Sure, she's a 1/1, but like you're getting a free food out of it. You're getting a free counter as long as you control something else. And if you're making a lot of tokens, Rosie is going to make a lot of counters for you. She's cooking. We have Samwise Gamgee next, her husband. Green-white for a 2/2 halfling peasant. When another non-token creature enters under your control, make a food. Sack 3 foods to return target historic card from your graveyard to your hand. Sam is nuts. Such a great card here. He doesn't care if the cards that are coming in are historic, so you're just straight up, getting a whole bunch of food as long as you're playing creatures. He's a 2 mana effect, so he's really easy to get into play. And then, without even mana cost, add instant speed, sacking those foods to get your artifacts, legendaries, or sagas back is wild. I think Gamgee is one of the best cards in the set, both at the helm of a deck and in the 99 of a similar effect. I'm playing him in my Legends Matter partners with Yoshimaru and Reihan because it's very legendary focused and plays a lot of small creatures. Samwise the Stout-Hearted, 1 and a white for a 2/1 halfling peasant with flash. When he enters, you choose a permanent in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn, put it back in your hand, and the ring tempts you. Honestly, solid little role filler in like a legendary deck, or really just, a lot of white decks, but you're not building this as a commander, but definitely a decent option, especially if you want a few tempt effects. We have Saradoc, Master of Buckland, 3 and a white for a 2/4 halfling citizen. When he or another non-token creature with power 2 or less enters under your control, make a 1/1 white halfling creature token. You can tap 2 other untapped halflings you control to give Saradoc himself +2/+0 and lifelink. So you can go from a 2/4 to a 4/4 lifelinker. I kind of like Saradoc. He's pretty cool, honestly. You have to be playing a lot of creatures again. Goes really well with like a halfling typal deck. But he's mono white, so I don't think that he does a great job at the helm of a deck, though. He is one of the Jumpstart exclusive cards, which definitely explains kind of the limited range here. He's in a Halflings Matter kind of pack. But kind of a cool card, honestly. I like Saradoc. Really encourages going little. Saruman of Many Colors, 3 white, blue, black for a 5/4 Avatar Wizard. He has a crazy ward cost. Ward, discard an enchantment, instant, or sorcery. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, each opponent mills 2 cards. When 1 or more cards are milled this way, exile target enchantment, instant, or sorcery with equal or lesser mana value than the spell that you cast from an opponent's graveyard. Copy the exiled card, and you can cast it for free. Nice little value train here, honestly. Saruman is basically telling you to play, cast 2 every single turn. It doesn't care if it's on your turn. It doesn't care if it's on their turn, player 2's turn, player 4's turn. Cast 2 cards, cast 2 spells every turn. You're milling each opponent, and then you just get your pick of that stuff. I definitely think Saruman's amazing with cost reduction effects like Delve, or just lots of effects that will reduce the cost of your instants and sorceries in general. But he seems like a really powerful effect that is gated at 6 mana pretty appropriately here. I think it's really cute as well that he only cares about magic, so he gets enchantments, instants, or sorceries. Really cool. I like Saruman a whole lot. I think he'd be an amazing commander. We have another Saruman. We have Saruman the White, 4 and a blue for a 4/4 Avatar Wizard with just generic ward 2. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, amass Orcs 2. I think this goes in the previous Saruman deck, honestly. Getting you a little army going is real nice. But this is probably not your commander. We have Sauron the Dark Lord next. I chose to include his ring showcase because it is my favorite art in the whole set. He is 3 blue, black, red for a 7/6 Avatar Horror. He has the craziest ward in the set. Ward, sacrifice a legendary artifact or legendary creature. And then he has some of the best lines of text I've ever seen. When an opponent casts a spell, amass Orcs 1. A spell, any spell. You have 3 opponents in a game of Commander. You are amassing a huge Orc army. The next line here is whenever an army you control deals combat damage to a player, the ring tempts you. So you're going to be picking your ring bearer pretty nicely, pretty easily. And then, whenever the ring tempts you, you may discard your hand, and if you do, draw 4 cards. Always refilling. You know, like, empty your hand, refill. Empty your hand, refill. All you have to do is get tempted. And it doesn't have to just be by the orcs, but honestly, your orcs are going to be so huge that blocking them is going to start getting really tough for your opponents. Sauron seems like one of the most powerful effects in this entire set. I think this card is an absolute must build as a commander if you're looking for something crazy in Grixis. Sauron is phenomenal. Absolutely crazy card. All right, we have another Sauron, Sauron the Lidless Eye, 3 black-red for a 4/4 Avatar Horror. He's also from the starter decks. When he enters the battlefield, you get to gain control of target creature an opponent controls until end of turn. You untap it, it gains haste. So you're casting a 5-mana 4/4, but you're getting a free attack with somebody's stuff. And then 1 black red creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn, and each opponent loses 2 life. World Gorger Dragon rejoices. Sauron goes, just wins the game on the spot with infinite mana. Honestly, very powerful, especially for like the starter deck. I think Sauron has a lot of applications, is a really powerful effect. I like him a whole lot. I think he might even be kind of like tempting me to build him into a World Gorgery kind of combo deck. I like him a lot. Really cool card. Really cool card. Our last Sauron is a mono black one, Sauron the Necromancer. 3 black for a 4/4 Avatar Horror with Menace. When he attacks, you can exile a creature from your graveyard. You make a tapped and attacking copy of it, except it's a 3/3 black Wraith with Menace. And then you exile it unless Sauron is your ring bearer at the beginning of your next end step. Solid little piece here. 5-mana 4/4 Menace is certainly nothing to shake a stick at. The fact that you get a free creature card out of your graveyard, I'm sure it's a 3/3, but it has all of the effects and powers of those cards. And then you can keep it if you've been tempted enough that Sauron is your ring bearer. Solid little card. I could see a commander deck going around this, trying to mill some of your good shit in your graveyard. But I think this is also just a nice piece in any kind of reanimator. Maybe not reanimator, but any kind of mill deck. Reanimator obviously doesn't want to exile their creature cards out of the graveyard. I like Sauron a lot. We have Shadowfax, Lord of Horses. 3 red, white for a 4/4 horse. Horses you control have haste. For those who don't know, haste means they can attack and tap as soon as they come under your control. This message is brought to you by Shadowfax, showing us the meaning of haste. Great gag, Wizards, great gag. Whenever Shadowfax, Lord of Horses, attacks, you may put a creature card with lesser power from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. He definitely reminds me of like a baby Winota. I think a little less annoying than Winota, but also just quite powerful. I mean, he's a 4/4 haste, just jumping onto the board and bringing a friend along with him. And if you get him a little bigger, he gets even more impactful. Shadowfax is probably my favorite uncommon legend out of this set, and I think he just seems real spicy. I like Shadowfax a whole lot. Definitely playable as a commander, in my opinion, and I'm kind of tempted to brew up a list here, so if you see something popping up on the channel in the next few weeks, it might be Shadowfax. Galadriel will probably be first, though, because I intend to build that in paper. We have Shagrat Loot Bearer next. 2 black-red for a 4/4 Orc Soldier. When he attacks, attach up to 1 target equipment to him. Then amass Orcs X, where X is the number of equipment attached to Shagrat. This card is so funny to me. I mean, for one, you can steal your opponent's equipment. They still control them, so like they can unequip as long as they have the mana to do so. But like basically, your whole deck is just kind of built around playing a bunch of equipments, sticking them onto Shagrat, cheating their costs if you need to, and then making a huge orc army to go along with him. I love that this opens up a new archetype in Rakdos for Commander, Rakdos Equipment. Seems really great. I'm also kind of tempted to build this guy as just a dude with a giant bag full of swords. Seems really amusing to me, but also pretty powerful. I like him. We have Sharky, Tyrant of the Shire. 2 blue-black for a 2/4 Avatar Rogue. Activated abilities of lands your opponents control can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. He has all activated abilities of lands your opponents control except mana abilities, and he can use mana of any type to activate his new abilities. This is one of those Dimir cards that's incredibly dependent on the meta that you play in. If your opponents are playing a lot of utility lands, I think Sharky definitely has a place either as a commander or in the 99 of your decks. If your opponents are just really building around like efficiency and having lots of dual lands, Sharky isn't going to do anything. And I think his first Staxy ability is certainly impactful in those utility land metas, because people are expecting their utility lands to be able to do stuff for them, and Sharky just says no. But I think if you're not seeing a lot of those types of effects in a game, Sharky's just not going to do a lot. So I think he's very much a meta call, and he's probably not going to be at the helm of your deck. Interesting card, though. He definitely kind of made me pause the first time I saw him and just kind of think about how you might use him. But incredibly dependent on what your opponents are doing, and unfortunately they can spend a lot of time playing around you. We have Shelob, Child of Ungoliant, 4 green and black for an 8/8 Spider Demon with Death Touch and Ward 2. Your other spiders also have Death Touch and Ward 2. Whenever another spider dealt damage, or another creature dealt damage by a spider you controlled died this turn, exile it. Or, no, don't even exile it. Just create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a food, has all of the food effects, and loses all other card types. They even made a hilarious token that's just Shelob's Cocoon. I love that. I think this card is super sick. This is definitely like the new face of Spider Typal in Magic. Such a powerful effect here. I mean, just giving all your spiders Death Touch is nuts. Also, she's an 8/8 for 6 with Death Touch and Ward 2 and a bunch of other upside. But I just love that you can kind of, I mean, through fight effects, through damage dealing effects, use your spiders to deal damage to your opponent's stuff, steal their stuff when it dies in food form, and just gain a bunch of cool activated abilities is really powerful to me. Shelob is awesome. We have Smeagol, Helpful Guide next. Here's another great commander. 1 black-green for a 4/2 Halfling Horror. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, the ring tempts you. Whenever the ring tempts you, target opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land card. You put that card onto the battlefield under your control tapped, and then they are dumping the rest into their graveyard. Smeagol is a really sneaky mill deck. I'm deeply amused by him, though. So, like, if you just build a bunch of tempt effects in here, and then you just start stealing your opponent's lands every single time you tempt. The fact that he also tempts built into the card just when you have a creature die this turn is really good. Smeagol seems crazy. I would definitely recommend looking into this if you're looking for a fairly unique effect in Golgari. Smeagol's awesome. We have Strider, Ranger of the North, 2 red-green for a 4/4 human ranger with landfall. When a land enters under your control, target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and if it was power 4 or greater, after that 1/1 resolves, it gets first strike 2. Not a commander, I don't think, but certainly nice in landfall decks. I think Mina and Den would really like this. Anything that's, Omnath would love this. Anything that's green and red already, or more, that is playing a lot of lands, is going to find a use for Strider, I think, because having a way to give first strike to your stuff is really nice, and make them really big is cool, too. All right, we have the Balrog, Durin's Bane. 5 black-red for a 7/5 Avatar Demon, but he costs 1 less to cast for each permanent sacrifice this turn. He has haste. He can't be blocked except for by legendary creatures, and when he dies, you destroy target artifact or creature an opponent controls. This card reminds me a ton of one of my favorite cards in Magic, Dargo the Shipwrecker. Unfortunately, the cost reduction is only 1 less instead of 2, like Dargo, so you can't do, like, infinite Phyrexian Altar shenanigans with him. But I think if you've got a way to make, like, a treasure or something, the Balrog is going to be one of those infinite outlets like that where you can just wipe an opponent's board, make a bunch of treasures, sack a bunch of treasures, and make the Balrog just kind of an infinite cast out of your command zone. And that's really spooky. Cool card. I also like that he is also just a really powerful, nonsense commander here where he can't be blocked except for by legends, but he himself has haste, so, like, he just drops onto the board and slaps you for a bunch of damage. He kills in 3 attacks if he is your commander, so, yeah, your opponents better get legends down and start blocking or they're going to die. Super cool card. I think this is commanderable. We have the Balrog, Flame of Yudun. 3 black-red for a 7/7 Avatar Demon with trample. When a legendary creature an opponent controls dies, put the Balrog, Flame of Yudun on the bottom of its owner's library. This card is out of the starter decks. This card is bad. Sure, 5 mana, 7/7 with trample. Whoa, that's awesome. 1 legend dies. Any legend your opponent controls dies, and your Balrog is gone. The card kind of sucks. I get what they were going for with the flavor, but wow, I don't enjoy that on a Magic card. We have the Mouth of Sauron next. 3 blue-black for a 3/4 human advisor. When he enters, target player mills 3, and then you amass Orcs X, where X is the number of instants or sorceries in that player's graveyard. Mouth of Sauron is kind of bad. Similar to what I was saying about Sharky earlier, this card is super dependent on your opponent's decks. So yes, you get 3 opponents to choose from, and you'd choose the one with the most instants or sorceries, but like, if you don't have anybody running a bunch of instants and sorceries, you're not going to amass a whole lot. If you do, great, sure, yeah, you'll get a whole bunch of amass, but like, I don't like cards like this that are mega dependent on if your opponent like cooperates in their deck building process. So I don't think the Mouth of Sauron is really worth looking at very much. We have the Watcher in the Water, 3 blue-blue for a 9/9 Kraken. It enters tapped with 9 stun counters on it. When you draw a card during an opponent's turn, you can make a 1/1 blue tentacle. And whenever a tentacle you control dies, you can untap up to 1 target Kraken and put a stun counter on up to 1 target non-land permanent. So basically, very simply, comes in tapped, has to be untapped 9 times before you can actually start going off with a 9/9. Whenever you draw those cards, though, I mean, that's really great. It's whenever you draw a card. So, like, you could draw 6 cards and get 6 tentacles as long as you're doing that drawing during an opponent's turn. And then the tentacles dying lets you untap the Watcher in the Water, aka removing stun counters from them a bunch. And then getting to stun stuff your opponent's controls, sure, you're not tapping that stuff down, but you're putting the stun counter on them, and it's going to make it so much harder to handle. I think this card is pretty great. It was really bad in Draft and Limited, I noticed, but that's because there's not a lot of instant speed draw in this set. But I think once you get into the greater Commander ecosystem, the Watcher in the Water suddenly becomes quite a powerful token pooping out effect. And I might give this a shot in a couple decks. Watcher in the Water seems pretty cool. We have Theoden, King of Rohan, 1 red-white for a 2/3 human noble. Here, another human enters under your control. A creature you control just target creature, gains double strike until end of turn. Woo! Human Typal is going off with Theoden. That's a really powerful effect. Play this in the 99. Don't play this as your commander, but definitely play this in the 99 of a human's deck. Theoden goes hard. Alright, we have Tom Bombadil the Bombadil. He is Wooburg, 4/4 God Bard. As long as there are 4 or more lore counters among sagas you control, he has Hexproof and Indestructible. The final chapter ability of a saga you control resolves. Reveal cards from the top of your library till you reveal a saga. Put it onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom in a random order, but you can only do this once each turn. Yep, it's saga.deck. I don't really have a lot to say about Tom Bombadil. He's a good card. He is the saga commander that people have been waiting for. Pick your favorite sagas, put them in a deck with Tom Bombadil. Probably put Goldberry in there and some other effects that let you manipulate when and where counters are going through like some proliferate nonsense as well. That's it. That's Tom Bombadil. Cool card. But really, the deck kind of builds itself and it makes it feel a little boring to me. We have Ugluk of the White Hand, 2 black-red for a 3/3 Orc Soldier. When another creature you control dies, you put a 1/1 counter on Ugluk. If the creature was a Goblin or Orc, put 2 of them on him instead. Super generic, goes in your Goblin decks, gets big fast. Cool card, not a commander. Witch King of Angmar, 3 black for a Wraith Noble with flying. 1 or more creatures deals combat damage to you. Each opponent sacks a creature that dealt combat damage to you this turn, and the ring tempts you. You can discard a card to give the Witch King indestructible until end of turn and tap it. Also not a commander, but whew, that's kind of a nasty tax effect that might make your opponent think twice about what they're swinging in with, because if you have blockers, you can selectively choose to take damage in order to ensure that your opponent has to sacrifice that creature. Really nasty. I like him a lot. Probably not a commander, though, seriously. Maybe the 99. Then we have Witch King, Bringer of Ruin from the starter decks. 4 black for a 5/3 Wraith Noble with flying. When he attacks, the defending player sacks their smallest creature. Yeah, it's fine. 6 mana for a 5/3 flyer. Not great, but I like the sacrifice thing, even if it is their smallest dude. This feels like a starter deck card, though, and I don't think there's a lot of places it's going to see play. All right, we're down to the last 4. There we go. Eomer of the Rittermark, 4 and a red for a 5/4 human knight with haste. When he attacks, if you have the greatest power among creatures on the battlefield, you make yourself a free 1/1. It's not attacking, it's just there. Fine card, really nice in human typal. Not really great anywhere else. We have another Eomer Marshal of Rohan, 4 red for a 4/4 human knight with haste. When one or more other attacking legendary creatures you control die, untap all creatures you control, get an extra combat once per turn. Cool card. I'm probably going to try this out in my extra combats deck that is headed by Grand Warlord Rada. Eomer seems pretty cool there. It plays a lot of legends already, so not a bad way to get yourself another extra combat step, especially if you have ways to get that stuff back. Eowyn Fearless Knight is 2 red for a 3/4 human knight with haste. When she enters, exile target creature an opponent controls with greater power, and your legendary creatures get protection from each of that creature's colors until end of turn. So, I mean, just pops in, removes something with 4 power or more, and then protects your board for the turn. Eowyn seems awesome, even better if you've got good flicker effects. Honestly, I could see this totally being a cool deck. And if you have effects that just are onboard Anthem pumps, Eowyn can come in and just erase stuff really nicely. You can pump your opponent's creatures to make sure they get erased too. I like Eowyn a whole lot, because she just comes in and picks the biggest thing on the board and just gets rid of it. Awesome card. And lastly, we're going to look at another Eowyn, Lady of Rohan. 2 and a white for a 2/4 human noble. Beginning of combat on your turn, a creature you control, or not even a creature, just target creature, gains first strike or vigilance until end of turn, and if it's equipped, it gains both. Your equip abilities cost 1 less. You're going to play Eowyn in your equip decks. You're going to play her in all of those types of effects because of that equip cost, and giving first strike and vigilance is really nice. But she's not going to do a whole much more than that. Play her in those decks. Good card. All right, that is all of the legendaries from the Lord of the Rings main set. It's done. It's over. There's a lot of good selections out of here, so thank you very much for watching. I've been Zach with MTG Friends.